One of the frequent problems that JavaScript programmers have to deal with is identifying the various web browsers that a user might be using to view their web pages. Due to incompatibilities in JavaScript and the way that JavaScript is supported in different browsers, sometimes you have to take different action to accomplish different effects according to which browser is being used. Now, we've seen an example of that in my FeedReader application. Remember that I had to create the request object in a different way by testing for window.activex object support, which identified Internet Explorer, and then I took different action for other browsers. Now, it turns out that you can get quite a lot of information about the browser being used, and if you look at browserinfo.html, you'll see that I've used the navigator object. Now, the navigator object can be queried for information about the navigator, about the web browser that is currently being used. Unfortunately, it doesn't give you just what you might expect. For example, in the name of the browser, whether it's Chrome or Firefox or Internet Explorer, and the version number. It has more complicated types of information, and sometimes you have to query different bits of information in order to extract the full version number that you require. Well, here's an example. As you can see, I've used navigator.appName, navigator.appCodeName, navigator.appVersion, .platform, .product, and .vendor. Another thing you'll find is that not all this information is returned by all web browsers, and even the absence of some piece of information might help you to identify which browser is being used. So here I'm running it first on Mac, and I'm using Safari, and this is the information it gives. Browser, Netscape. Now, a lot of browsers will tell you that they're Netscape, and that's for historical reasons. And so they're not actually Netscape, but they share a common ancestry and they identify themselves as Netscape. Then the code name, Mozilla, and then there's this version, and that's where you get the most information. In some cases, you get a whole string of information, as here in Safari, and you could look into that string to extract different bits of data that will help you identify exactly which version of Safari is being used. Then it tells me the platform, whether this is Mac, product Gecko, and vendor Apple. And you'll find similar amounts of information returned by other web browsers, whether you're using, for example, on Windows. Here I've got Chrome, and again you can see different information in the various fields. And now let's look at Firefox. And finally, Windows Internet Explorer from Microsoft. So there are various different ways of identifying this information, but often it's sufficient just to use the technique that I used of identifying Internet Explorer and dealing with all the rest. But in some cases you will find that JavaScript authors, and maybe you'll be using other people's JavaScript in your own JavaScript pages and web pages, you'll find that they use different techniques to parse through some of the strings that are returned from the information fields to identify exactly which browser they're using.